I felt the drive and the call. Well, I felt like that was the most useful possible thing I could do. And I tried hard. I even went to Ecuador as a missions leader for 6 weeks, which was amazing. Another unbelievable, amazing, experience that I saw. It was over kids, like 12 to 17. And it was a group of 15 guys and 14 girls. And I was one of the 2 guys over the males. And we went, we did a huge drama all over the city of Quito. You could see the change in their face and stuff once they felt like there was somebody else that sacrificed for them. You would see like they would have hope. And it was, it was impactful to where you see others quickly like hold on to hope and cling to something that can create a better life for them. And then I got back, and that's when I felt like the drive and the push and the calling to be there for others. And I saw like one of the dramas, there was a kid watching the drama, and some full 200-pound grown man came up behind him and smacked him in the head with like a little blackjack thing or one of those little weighted things. And I got into it with him, and he didn't understand me and I didn't understand him. And then the interpreter came over and was like, no, you will disappear. Those are their kids. And they're the little kids that run around selling chiclets, and they're like homeless and familyless. And I guess these adults preyed on them and like, you work for us now, we'll feed you, but this is what you do all day, sell chiclets. And the one kid, I told him I wouldn't mess with anybody else, but we came to an agreement that the one kid could stay with me for the day. And so I carried this kid around on my shoulders and stuff. I do have a picture of that. It was amazing. And it was also upsetting because once I came back to the States, even the most like grateful people I knew were just like ungrateful, entitled, just like almost like sickening, to where it's like, ugh, what? And of course, I joined the rank of them within 3 or 4 weeks. And once I got accustomed to the I have everything culture, I'm sure. But that stuck with me, that feeling of like, not wanting to ever be one of those entitled, like, ungrateful people.
Right. Unaware of your.
Yeah. Totally. Just like with blinders on, like, this is my life. Mm-hmm. This is what I do. And not aware of, drive past the homeless people in the corner and just, that was not I was not okay with that.
At this point, have you come across or discovered internal family systems yet? Or was that later down kind of?
Yeah, that was far. That was,
okay, we'll get there.
Okay. Yeah, that was probably 5 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago is when I was in couples therapy with an ex, and he brought it up, and I thought it was kind of crazy, but I've always known that there are different parts. And because when I feel anxious and overwhelmed, I literally can feel that. I've always called him the dark passenger. That arises and is like, I got this, and then puts up walls and nobody or nothing can get through, and I can deal and handle anything and everything. And luckily, thank God I had that, because it assisted me through different traumas as an adult as well. So, and these parts that come up are actually protective parts, and they try their best to do what they know to do, which what I knew to do was to numb and abuse alcohol and drugs. And I did know the whole Teen Challenge experience. That was hard to apply because, like, the way my inner person saw that was that's just religious. You can only be a part of that if you sign up and check these boxes, according to the church that you're a part of. So it was hard to be able to be okay with myself, like, applying all that, because I wasn't staying within those lines. I wasn't checking all those boxes. I had quote unquote sin in my life. So, and I got engaged. I went on the missions trip, came back, nothing was good enough. So we ended up eloping one rainy day. When I felt that drive and stuff, I literally was like, this is too much. I am not worthy of that type of drive and calling. That's for people that did not have to grow up the way I grew up. I felt like I had too much baggage and too much trauma, and I wasn't able to like have enough self-love to be able to fit that role. So of course, then I felt like I betrayed myself. So I went back to the same old stuff, ended up getting married, started contracting, had our first child, our second child. After I had my first child, we'll say I was not a person that made the best choices. And again, I was scared of responsibility. And because of the drug use and everything, me and my ex separated. I ended up going back. So down in North Carolina, I got to know my father. Okay. And he didn't want to be a dad. He wanted to be like a friend. I started drinking together, and I guess I was 25. Yeah, 25, 24, because I had 2 kids, and the youngest was a baby. And he ended up getting into some really hardcore drugs. And of course, I did as well. And then one of his friends got him to start shooting up cocaine. And this is, I think this was his part that continually hijacked him. He began to get belligerent and yell and cuss out my ex. And so I couldn't handle him anymore. And I called my grandma, who was his mom. And I was like, I'm done. You have to come get your son. And so she did, even though I was called the devil from all the family, was telling me that I was torturing them. I was literally having them hold on for nothing, that I was evil and all this. And so she came and got him, took care of him for a little while, ended up going into a nursing home. He went from like 6 nursing homes from one to the next. And I got off the hardcore stuff and was trying to kind of straighten up by my own, volition of what I knew and didn't know, which of course didn't work. It would work intermittently, like for small periods of time. But then once I was triggered, and that protective part was like, oh no, we know what goes on here. We know how to deal with this. We're going to close the curtain, numb you. You're going to be safe. You're going to be fine. Ended up getting in another relationship, and then going back across country and landing in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We were thinking about, we were planning on starting a company, an organization, Dream Green, which was going to be a grow company. And the kind of main focus was either going to be to give, veterans, because he's a veteran, and he's a veteran who experienced the huge significant impact that weed changed his life. And to either give or severely discount marijuana for veterans. And I began growing semi-legally, just like all the growers that learn to grow. And so I was from out of state, of course, and we actually put in for the to be caretakers, to be able to take care of other people with red cards and be able to have a higher plant count. And so we got our plant count up to a few hundred. So I found a loophole, and that was that you could donate 1 ounce per person that's over 21 years older, 1 ounce per weed per person every 24 hours. And so I was like, well, I know in Teen Challenge, when we went around to churches and stuff, you can give a service away and stuff and then ask for donations. So I was like, well, I'm going to give away free weed and advertise it on Craigslist and accept suggested donations.
And, found your loophole.
Right. And so I called it my pizza delivery service. And I through that, though, and I would get red flagged and I'd have to repost like 3 or 4 times during the day. And my operating hours, I'd cut on my phone like from 9 to 4 every day. It was like, and we were doing everything legally. And so I was like, this is awesome. I'm helping people and it's legal and everything's going to be fine. Well, so they started tracking me and following me. I ended up getting set up in Golden, Colorado, by somebody to go and purchase 10 pounds of weed. They charged me with them, and they charged me with 2 pit firearms, 25 to 50 pounds of weed, which I had 0, and then intent to sell and deliver. It was like, I don't know, 7 felonies or something crazy.
Yeah, they had the charges like printed out before you were that's that blizzard.
Right, and that's what they do. That's the whole plea bargain thing, which is so illegal. I mean, that's not constitutional at all. Was to charge you with 8 different things. 2 of them may seem true, and then you plea out on 1 or 2, or you're facing 50 years. Like I was facing 17 to 32 years, 17 to 32 with drugs and guns. So I got bonded out, cash bonded out over like the next day. And so I was very familiar with the legal system. So we ended up going across country to get my dad, borrowed a car. Another long story short, went through Oklahoma, got pulled over. I was not driving. They ended up, state trooper was like, I don't want to see your license to the driver. I want to see yours to me. I was a passenger, which that's illegal. Like what? And then ended up stripping the car down. They found heroin and meth and a whole lot of weed. Now, at that time, we were going to pick up my dad. Stacy, we were both into some heavy stuff. In addition, I was specific on not bringing any type of heavy stuff because this was a cross-country trip. We're picking up my dad. Mm-hmm. So I got arrested. Well, we both got arrested and locked up in Oklahoma. I was there for 8 months. Interesting enough, when we did get locked up, I went in front of the judge, and I didn't even know where we were. I knew somewhere in Oklahoma, and I asked.
That's crazy.
They charged me. They said I had $15,000 cash bond or regular bond, and I stood up. I was like, "Your Honor, can I have a more reasonable bond?" And he said, "How's $150,000 cash? Sit down." And I was like, "Oh my God, where am I? Like what?" I mean, I was just like, I had no idea. And then they in order to use the payphone, you had to have like a ID number that you typed in. They would not give me an ID number for 10 days. And I think they were trying to see like who was going to come looking for me, like whether, cause they thought I was this big Don Juan, the DeMarco, like it was ridiculous. And so, it's horrible. I was there 8 months, ended up getting a job in the kitchen, got jumped by the ABs, the Aryan Brotherhood, over a poker game. And so I ended up after 8 months, 8.5 months, they dropped my bond back to $15,000. And my dad got me out, because he was in contact with me through all of that. And so, I got out, took a bus back to my dad's house in North Carolina, and was going to work and try to make some sort of sense of all the mess. And I ended up getting, with my dad's help, a lawyer in Colorado, a lawyer in Oklahoma, and to fight both of them. The Colorado lawyer got my continuance for like 3 months. The Oklahoma lawyer said that the Judge Adair, would not give me a continuance, which legally I was supposed to get 2, and they're just like, no, sorry. And So I did what any logical person would do. I went on the run. So my dad gave me and my ex his Jeep and a couple $1,000 and was like, good luck. And I was on the fugitive list. I was a fugitive for a little while. Mm-hmm. They were about 2 weeks behind me, ended up running into my dad's house. And then I stayed with my little brother, who he was actually a Navy decoder who also worked with the NSA. And he let me stay with him for a while, and I did not, reveal my legal issues. He knew I was in some stuff, and I was like, I'm working it out. Don't worry about it. Ended up leaving there, and they ran up in his house about 2 weeks after I left. And then I had a $20,000 reward on my head. And a friend of mine actually said, what got me to look at a few properties. And I kind of knew what was going on, but I was so tired of staying with like friends of friends who knew me as Johnny instead of Lonnie. Mm-hmm. That's what I went by. That was my grow name. And I ended up waiting. We waited at a job for literally probably about an hour and a half. And I knew what was happening. I was like, this is it. But I was so tired of it all. And I was like, I have to get back to my kids. This has to be over. Like, this is not sustainable. And so I just hung out there, and I pretty much knew what was going on. And sure enough, like 4 cars pulled up unmarked, and they were full dressed, like fugitive task force, with the laser dots and everything. I got down on my knees, raised my hands. This was in the snow too. And then, so they tackled me and bulldogged me into the ground. I was like, okay. Ended up locking me up there in Williamsburg. I fought extradition. They gave me 12 months because through all this, I wasn't paying child support. Obviously, I was on the run and locked up. And so they gave me 12 months for that. And then I fought extradition because Colorado was trying to get me back there to extradite me. And then they had 180 days. And I went to the law library, did all the proper paperwork, filled out the demand for disposition and all that. And so they had 180 days. They did not come get me. On the 181st day, the judge in Virginia called me back in the courtroom and was like, all charges dismissed. I guess they don't want you, da, 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 da. And then they were like, Mr. Duncan, you're being released. Went back, super excited. Mr. Duncan, you're being held. And then, so Oklahoma filed to extradite me and just to hold me there. 2 days later, Colorado came and the magistrate called me down and they filed different charges, similar, but different. And then that way they're new charges. So they don't fall under the category that the judge already dismissed. All of this shit is so illegal. And
you got this shirt underneath your clothes that says Don Juan on it. Like,
right.
Your cash cow.
Right. Don Juan, who tried to shoot somebody. And
how did they know?
I know. God. And so I was like, this is so illegal. And even the jailers and stuff, we were like, we don't know. We just, this is what's coming down from up high. This is what we have to go on. And I actually had, when Colorado extradited me, the lady at the front, because I knew all these people, I again got into the kitchen and became the chicken fryer. And I came up with an amazing recipe for fried chicken, and secret recipe was Old Bay sauce or Old Bay seasoning. And so all the high upper, white collar level people in the jail loved me. And I also got into, while I was there, I got into a program that they have to visit your kids face to face, which was really cool. So for 6 months, I got to see 2 of my kids, and then my oldest daughter was 17, and they had to be 16 and under for some reason. Or when they're 18, they could come as like the parental person of the other kids. So when she was 18, I got to see her like twice before they extradited me.
So you were about to tell me about was the transport story next?
Oh, yeah. This is something that I definitely am going to use any and every platform that I could possibly attain. Bringing awareness and understanding like the different parts that we're made of. And my parts were extremely protective. And when you have complex trauma, which is trauma at an early childhood age from like a parent, a significant person in your life, neighbor or whatever, and that complex trauma has your parts like polarized, where it's more difficult to be able to access them, and because they're a part of you and they've been a part of you forever, and they've literally protected you and, you know, created an environment where you could survive out of. My disassociation part and my like the part of me that can like dark pastor, that can handle anything and everything, and like literally keep my exiles and my little, you know, 3-year-old boy, 5-year-old boy safe and keep everybody else away, ended up being a vital part of me that allowed me the freedom and survival through this experience.
I watched the videos that you kind of like directed me to, and I went on the website as well. And I really, I guess the difference really for what people might hear you saying and what it actually is built out to be is it's not like you're trying to get rid of these different parts of you.
Right.
You're working with them kind of like at the table, right?
Right. Yeah. You definitely don't. If you try to get rid of the parts that come up, the protected parts, then what you'll do is push them away and polarize them even more, where they're like, oh no, we can't trust you. You know, we can't give you access to why we do what we do or anything, because we can't trust your choices. You know, you're trying to get rid of us. You're trying to make us stop what we're doing, which will create, you know, an environment of unsafety, an environment of danger. And so, yeah, you definitely, you want to be loving and appreciative and understanding of these parts. You know, when they come up, be like, I feel why you're coming up right now. Right now I'm safe. Cause I still have, you know, parts come up and you end up, you want to be able to unburden those parts and allow them to feel accepted and safe and a part of you, like a part of you that is healthy and a part of you that is motivating. And a lot of times these parts, you know, want to help. They, you know, I mean, that's what they feel like they're doing. And once you create awareness around it, then these parts open up and you can access the exiles that they're protecting and understand why that protective part does what he does. And then you can present the like inner dialogue question of like, you know, what do you feel? How would you feel? What do you think would happen if you didn't do your job? You know, and a lot of times you'll get, you know, oh, well, you wouldn't be able to make it. You wouldn't be able to cope. You wouldn't be able to deal with this. Da, da, da. And then a follow-up question is, you know, well, how old do you think I am? And usually that protective part will think you're still a child and that it's still protecting this 5-year-old. And that's where it's like awakening, where you're like, when you feel that response from that protective part, oh, well, you're 4 years old. And you'd be surprised, you know, it kind of sounds crazy. And that's what amazed me, because I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this, you know, touch in, da, da, da. And literally he was like, you're probably having a critical part come up. And I was like, yeah, you know, ask him to step back if he will. And you get to know these different parts that come up, you know, because I have a super critic that's like, you're not good enough. You don't deserve to be in this meeting right now. You don't, you know, different things where it's like, who do you think you are? You know, you're definitely too big for your britches, like my grandma used to say. And like, you need to just, you need to be safe. You know, if you put yourself out there like that, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get rejected. And I can't allow that to happen. So a lot of times protective parts will come up and like, literally push people away or have like create an attitude or like resistance for no reason. And
is this kind of, so these were like the defense mechanisms that they didn't come all at once, right? These parts, these are things that kind of were built or manifested out of all of the different complex traumas that you continue to experience, or were they all there and they just kind of multiplied at a young age?
That's a great question, because that's where like me and Robert Schwartz, who pretty much developed like IFS and came out with it, somewhat differ in opinions. And maybe my polarization of parts was just extreme to where I didn't know I had these parts, because the IFS system, the modality says you have all your parts. When you're born, you have all your parts, which makes sense on some things. And some parts can learn those protective ways and learn their position through those traumatic experiences. Like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I'm passionate about. This is how I'm used. You know what I mean?
So that's how they're activated, depending on.
I would say activated is a good word, or like assigned, being like, this part comes up and it's like, okay, this part wants to deal with this. And I think a lot of that's unconscious, and, you're not necessarily aware of that. And you learn all this information once you're locked up for a long time. If you get extradited, you can't take anything extra with you at all. You can take everything you're wearing. And this was, I think it was mid-June in Virginia, and it was probably 95 degrees outside. And so I was imagining being extradited in an air-conditioned van. And actually, I thought I was going to fly, like, because it's Colorado. And so I put all my whites on, like 5 shirts, 5 socks, like 3-4 pairs of boxers, my long johns, everything. Because they keep the temperature in prison jail very low, because that keeps everybody's attitude and their tension and everything lower. How is that like productive and helping people like learn new ways? And anyway, so this is what you did. Now you're being punished. You're not being rehabilitated at all. You're being punished beyond, you're being caught up in a system and taught to behave the way the system wants you to behave, so that you'll get right back out, come back in. Like the recidivism rates are crazy. And it's like, that's another thing I'll bounce around that I don't get. It's because, like, okay, if these percentages are so low, then guess what? It's not fucking working. So it's like, go back to the board and, let's reanalyze and find out something that does work. Find out that something that does appeal to people to stop abusing drugs and becoming violent when they don't get them. And because
Lonnie, that's too reasonable. You're being way too reasonable.
Right.
That's
and it's so it's too simple.
Innocent people in ice boxes. That. You and I know we could go back and forth on this for a second, but you had your 18 layers of clothes on, and you're being extradited from Virginia to Colorado.
Right, and the people at the front desk, like I was saying, I knew them all, and so she was like, "Well, I think I'm supposed to give this to the guard, but here," and she handed me like a 2-inch packet of everything, and what that was all of, like, the explanation, all of the apparently there was like 16 witnesses against me. And I mean, it was everything from Colorado. And it was like the letter from Governor Hickenlooper for extradition. It was like everything. And I had it all. And I was like, okay, cool. And I still have it all, because it shows the different illegalities with the magistrate, with the timing, with all of that. So she, the lady officer, walks me back to the van and opens up the back of like an Astro cargo van, not like a big minivan, like an Astro cargo van, all white, blacked out. And there's 7 other people jammed in the back, shackled. Like our hands were cuffed. our ankles were cuffed, and then there was a chain running through the loop in our handcuffs to our ankles. So we were literally like, we had like 3 feet to move. And I was literally already sweating, and she was like, okay, get in. And it was like 1,000 degrees. And I was like, I'm not getting in there. Not with all these on. I was like, you can either unhandcuff me and I can take all these off, or, I'm not getting in there. You're going to have to go get the goon squad. And so she was like, I'm not supposed to do this, but I will. So she unhandcuffed me. I took all my layers off and had like this big giant bundle of clothes. And I was like, well, can I at least take them with me? She was like, I don't care. And so through the trip, I ended up trading them off for like extra cheeseburgers and stuff like that. So I got in this van, and literally, like, you're like this up against another person. There was no AC. It was like 120 degrees. People were stripped down to like their boxers. It was crazy. We were all shackled to like a bar in the floor that we were like put through. And we started our journey. We went straight north in Virginia. We stopped by different jails and everything else, went through New Jersey. And each stop we would make, they would actually go through intake of like jail intake and take pictures of us, fingerprints and everything. And later on, my youngest daughter was like, Dad, what in the world? You're a lifetime criminal. You've been arrested in like 17 states. And I was like, no, that just shows. And I don't know if that's why they did it, but like each place we got intaked into, or the process went through, like that shows that we were arrested there, like forever.
What?
Yes. And so they ended up, and we were federal employees at the time when you're being extradited, and you're not supposed to go in general population. And going through New Jersey, I guess they didn't have separate quarters for like transport. And so they put us in general pop. And it was me and like 3 other guys. And literally, and at the time I'd been locked up for a while. So I was like 215 pounds and I was ripped and ready to go. And when we went to this, they called it the Green Giant. When we went there, they put us in this pod, no mattresses, no anything. And I was like, well, what about the mattresses? He was like, well, you just have to find your own. And the front guard, he did not care at all. And so, these 3 guys, I was with 2 older gentlemen and another guy. One of the older gentlemen was being extradited 3 states away for fines. Another one was being extradited for his second DUI, like to Michigan or somewhere. And I mean, I was just like, oh my God, this is so sad. And then come to find out through that summer, another old guy with another van died because the conditions were so bad. And they did have a camera in the back that was busted and hanging. So like when they dropped us off at the Green Giant, like literally there was groups of guys trying to buy one of the other guys off of me, because I was obviously the one that could handle my own. And I just told the other guys, I was like, stick with me, do not wander. And I went, like the officer told us, I don't know, like if you have 2 mattresses, like a double up is what they call it. The guards will go around and collect the secondary mattresses. Well, the guard told me, he was like, well, good luck, go get your mattress, and find a bunk. And so I had to walk around with these guys and get each of them a mattress. And then they slept in the floor of the cell that I slept in for 2 days, which was crazy. I mean, it was crazy.
It's inhumane. Yeah. You definitely experienced and witnessed the most inhumane thing.
And see, and here's the thing about it. Yeah, he didn't like that either. Most people, everybody I know, once they get out of the penal system and everything else, they're terrified of it. They're terrified of confrontation. They're terrified of conflict, of going back there, and they have nothing to do with it. They're not going to bring up any of the illegalities. And I determined, like, oh no, my drive is to, address this stuff, get back on my feet, address this stuff, and figure out, like, I can't even explain, because we were like urinating in plastic bottles. They were rolling around the floor. It was one guy crapped on himself because the officers, like they're called, because it took me 21 days, okay, through transport. We went all the way up to like almost to Maine, back down to like, what was that? New Hampshire, or not New Hampshire, back down to Maryland, and then across. So it was 8 days in the van, and then we went back right next to Virginia. And I was like, what? I don't know. Like, you literally picked me up on purpose to take me on this road where you went within 3 hours of where you could have picked me up after 8 days of all that. And then when we came back down, they dropped us back off at the Green Giant.
Did you find that like this was the point you're just like, no, this is the point I need to start helping people dealing with the penal system, tell me how that came about to like what you're trying to like do in school now as you go through your lessons and classes, because I'm interested in all of this is one huge collective, obviously, of so much depth, and I really want you to talk a little bit about where you see all of this taking you now.
It was like seeing to that, like when you're literally shackled to a van like that and going through that is literally mentally in order to even be okay. Because one, I'm semi-claustrophobic. And so I literally had to like disassociate, and seeing like the misery and going through all that and hearing people's story and how they were like good people. Like, I mean, it was like they were good people that made bad choices. And a lot of times the bad choices was because of like trauma or like circumstantial or like lifetime trauma that had happened in their life. And so when we ended up going through and they dropped me off at Kentucky as like a holding place. And again, that's when I was landing there, I was like, there's no way I could ever, if I get out of this, there's no way I will be able to know that that's going on and not try to address it and bring awareness to it. Because like anybody that I know has been incarcerated or whatever, they don't want to ever touch anything or speak about it or talk about it. They just want to wipe it clean from the record. But that does nothing for those that are still suffering from the injustices.
Right. It's facing that shame, that guilt, and that shame, and just that maltreatment people give you.
And scared to death. Yeah, and scared to death because once you're in the system and once you're treated a certain way and it's okay, and like it's okay, like you can be thrown around and just treated however, then it's like you have this like innate fear of authority and fear of trying to go against conflict or bring up stuff, even if it's immoral, trying to go against it because it's like, oh my God, I have a record now. They're just going to lock me up again. So my case is not that. My case is like, okay, now it's time to shout it from the rooftops and bring awareness to those that think, these are, everybody's just criminals and they need to be tucked away and they need to be punished. And no, they're just normal people that have drank and drive like everybody. You just didn't get caught. That's all.
Right.
Not you, proverbial you.
But I don't know how many times I've heard that from either friends of mine that are in my close circle or just people. I mean, like it is astonishing what the penal system can get away with because they have.
There's no accountability.
I know how drastic. Yeah, I know how drastic that sounds, but it's not.
No, it's true.
Like
it's absolutely true. I mean, the same reason why cops are getting away with killing people now, there's starting to be accountability, but there needs to be a third party accountability for any type of organization that has power or control over another human being. Period. You need another third party outside opinion, empathetic minds that understand and can see, and their perspective is not skewed and they don't have biases against criminals. And, so it's, and I mean, that's a huge thing to tackle. And I know that, I'm not able to do it alone, but I will be able to bring some awareness.
But you do obviously have that energy from your own situation that like, rather than it putting you on your ass, with that fear that so many of the people that you met experienced, you're like, no, I'm not. No. And I 100% get that from my own personal experience. Like, this can't be put up with. This is really, really, really crap. And
it's not okay.
You don't want to be misjudged. I don't want to be misjudged. We all make mistakes. So therefore, it just has to stop. Right. And you also want to have empathy and kindness and advocate for those who could be in your shoes acting as well. But, their situation stands against them rather than for them.
And so they ended up dropping the guns and charging me with the weed, the fictitious weed, and giving me 4 to 8 years. And the judge was decent. He counted my Virginia time and he counted my county time there waiting on court. So I had like a year and a half left. I went to Sterling, which they put me behind a kill fence for growing weed. I had like 7 murderers on my wing, and I was there for growing weed, and people didn't believe me. I had to show my paperwork and stuff. And I spent time there, and this is when the actual like resounding change went on. Like one day, I was sitting there listening to the radio, or no, it was watching TV, and like there was this like meditation channel, and they were just like talking about calm breathing. And I was like, I guess I'll watch this stupid stuff. And so, I like within 5 minutes, I was like, I feel like this, I need to do this. And so I started meditating, I started yoga, and like, I would have these weird, like almost breakdown, like just crying, fits in my cell at Sterling, and I didn't know why. I was just like, it was almost like I was just unloading. And then it was almost like universe, God, what have you, the driver of this rock, was like reached down and was like, your life's not over. You have much more to go. And like, I didn't understand. And it was, sorry, I get like emotional with all that. But I was like open to like accepting and believing and trusting and hoping that this was not my end. Because if I got, because the first offer in Oklahoma is 20 years. And so if I went back there, I would at least have a minimum of 20, and my children would be adults, and they wouldn't have anything to do with me. And I knew that wasn't my path. And so I just kept meditating. I just be in a space, like just try to calm. And I started, breathing, deep breathing, and would just try to shed off all these negative things that would come up, which now I know they were like my critical parts and my, the different traumas in my past, trying to control my perspective of things. And I was like, no, my path is not this path. This is not the end. This is not my life. And then out of the blue, my case manager called me up and was like, do you want to go to a halfway house? And I was like, yes. Oh my God. And so out of nowhere, all of a sudden I had like a hope of life. And she told me that Oklahoma had dropped their warrants. And so I got out and aced the halfway house, did amazing. And my case manager was there for 7 years. I was the first one that graduated the halfway house in her time, which obviously like people, I don't understand why people aren't saying, oh, this shit doesn't work. Let's change our approach to it.
One person in 7 years has got through this halfway house.
Right. After, and they're and they're literally looking back at going to prison. And how could anybody, think that that's better or anything? That's just all they know. They don't know a different identity. Mm-hmm. They don't know a different lifestyle. And that's my drive, is to bring awareness to, getting in touch with your true self and not having to listen to those parts that come up and then say, you need to close the curtain, go get some dope. You need to close the curtain, go to the liquor store. You can acknowledge those parts and say, oh, I understand why you're there. I totally get it. You want to keep me safe. I'm totally safe. I don't need to be numb right now. And you just, they kind of melt away. And which is amazing. It's surprising how much inner dialogue goes on if you pay attention. And so I got out. I I was in like a tough relationship, and of course I was not by any means fixed or even like on the path to fix. I was still trying to just rely on that experience I had in Sterling to carry me to the life I wanted, which, you know, all experiences are great and everything, and you can look back on them, but you can't rely on any one of them to like drive you. So that didn't work out. And, I kind of started drinking a little bit, and that, you know, it's a slippery slope. And so of course my body, you know, knew exactly, those types and forms of coping, and sort of went back there. And I didn't go down the dark opiate hole at all. I'll never use opiates again, except for like surgery or something. They're evil, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I got into a relationship about a year after I got out, and she wanted to go to couples therapy, and because she didn't know how to deal with when I would talk about some of this baggage and some of the traumas and stuff that went on.
Good on her for making that call. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we went to therapy, and Ian, he was the one who introduced IFS to me and EMDR, and to touch in, and immediately, like, it was almost like my system, my inner system, like immediately was like, oh my God, this is the answer we've been waiting for. This actually creates understanding around everything, like all my actions, all my running, all my, you know, resistance to change, everything made sense. And so I took it and ran with it. And like, I still, right now, working on my book, The Sun Will Always Rise, I meet with my therapist usually like twice a week to go over stuff, because these parts are so active, walking through all the different experiences. And it has been absolutely empowering, even during these times, that parts come up and I'm able to address them. I'm able to appreciate them. I'm able to have them step back, and everything's fine. Nothing, the world doesn't end, you know, like I don't die in my sleep. If I choose not to be hijacked by that part and listen to it and go close the curtain, you know, and that's where our minds play tricks on us, where it's like, oh my God, you have to do this, and that you have to do that. That's the only way you're going to make it and be safe. The parts thing, I'm in IFS training right now until March, which is amazing. It's like, and it's kind of intense, but
what are you doing the training through? Is there
IFS Institute. It's okay. From Robert Schwartz himself. The IFS Institute, this one's 6 months. It's not level 1, level 2, or level 3. I think this is like a preliminary to be able to, this is foundations. And as a matter of fact, we were on a live webinar with Robert Schwartz. I got to ask him a couple questions, which is pretty cool.
You got to talk to your idol. I love it.
And it was pretty, I was so nervous. I was sweating and stuff. And, you know, hopefully I want to have him take part in my book, because throughout the book, I label like the traumas going on. I label the parts that come up, and how, you know, those parts hijacked me, and how, like, the development of my parts, and how they became to be so protective and so intense and like controlling over me. And my goal is I want to create a program that is IFS, that has IFS involved, that's strength-based, evidence-based, that also is positive peer culture, that allows, you know, the same age healing to go on. Like, because I mean, my daughter, I have 3 adult kids. None of them listen to me. And even if I agree with them, I can't agree correctly. So it's like, because they can't relate to me. They don't think I can relate to them until they read my book. Then they'll be like, oh
my gosh. Just, have you even thought about your daughters? You have 3 girls?
I have 2 girls and a boy.
Have you ever thought yet about what it's going to be like once they read your book? Of the, oh my God, I can't believe Dad. Holy shit, I get it now, Dad. Moments they're going to have.
Oh, I'm sure. And I think that'll be freeing for everybody, because there's definitely, when I was gone for 5 years, like I missed my oldest daughter's graduation from high school. Like I missed a lot. And
Gotta be
that's
on the
where I
low for
deal with
sure.
some resentment and anger with me, because it was like all illegal, even though it got me on the path I am now, which I understand and I'm grateful for. I go back and forth on that. So yeah, and I'm a senior at CSU, graduated in March, working on my book addressing trauma in parts. Just to give a quick thing, I see we have a few minutes left. And I'm starting a podcast. And it's, my goal is to become IFS certified level 2 and become a trainer in the IFS system with the IFS Institute, and help be a part of a program. I want to collaborate with, some great minds to develop this program and to help young adults become aware and understand that this isn't a cure-all, but it can be such an amazing tool to be able, to avoid a lot of those pitfalls, or at least understand and mitigate those pitfalls so that there are a lot lesser pitfalls,
Maybe you have something extra add on to that, but if you were webcamming, meeting with yourself, your 13-year-old self, since that happened to be such a lucky year for you, what would you want to tell your 13-year-old self, or anybody that could potentially be watching this and find themselves in the same 13-year-old shoes that you were in?
I would say throughout everyday life and your walk in life, understand and be aware of other people's issues and parts and problems and daily struggles, and see them similarly as your own, to be able to bring, empathy to the situation, and to be and to be able to actually connect with people, because I don't think a lot of people truly connect. Everybody goes about their own life with their own intentions, with their own goals and everything else. And I think if in general people would broaden, their perspective and allow others to become a part of their life and connect, it would be a more empathetic, understanding community and society. Versus, it's real easy right now. If somebody makes a mistake or whatever, oh, you're gone. You're out of the picture. Oh, you're out of the picture. Until I would say the problems, or the legal system, or the drug addiction, or the alcohol abuse, or the physical abuse affects that person or that family. And then, look at this huge issue. It's everywhere. And it's like, okay, well, why does it have to take that? Why does it have to take your son becoming addicted to heroin or ODing? Or why does it have to take these huge drastic things to understand and be aware of what's going on all the time?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's either you can take the opportunities to address what is in your way right now, 13-year-old self, or whatever it might be, or you can almost guarantee that you're going to have so many decades of life where that it's just going to be hell. And it's not all anyone's, just their own fault, but you have to pick and choose your battles. And, if no one else is going to, the best advocates are the ones that are going to advocate for those who have similar experiences than them. And that's hard. You were doing something really, really hard. I mean, that's an understatement.
Yeah. And I did do a experiment real quickly, because writing this has been so healing for me, and it has been so trying, where I literally have to take breaks, and I'll have crying fits and do breath work. And it sometimes feels like, oh my gosh, this is just too much. And then visiting back, yesterday, I told a friend of mine, I walked through some of the experiences to see of my trigger and see how it felt. And the things that I talked to him about, that I've already wrote about, literally it was fine. It was okay. I felt like a little anxiety and a little kind of uncomfortability, but it was oh, okay. And that was it. It was my evening still goes on. Everything that I'm still doing. That's not throwing me awry. I'm not locked up again. I'm not 13 to get strapped down. And I know those same feelings, those re-traumatizations come back. And it's like, once I got them out and kind of understood the parts and everything, like the whole scenario, it's like, oh, okay.
Once you see it and you figure it out, you will have the capacity to turn around and be like, oh, I found the last piece of that puzzle. Like, now I can see the whole image clearly. And I mean, I don't know about you. I'm completely certain we're on the same page about this, but that is why we do this work, is because some people just don't feel like they have the capacity to stand up, or, even just fall down if it's necessary. Right. And it is because you get to this point and you're like, yes, I'm awesome. I healed this. And it's never alone, but that's why
it's okay to fail. Right. And it's sometimes it's productive to fail. And failing literally can bring you to new levels and to open up new doors. And if you don't have failure, you don't even know what success is. That's just like without dark, you don't know what light is. It's something that we have to get used to and we have to understand, and we have to separate from those complex trauma responses. And we have to separate, okay, we failed at this didn't work out, but that doesn't mean we're 4 years old and our mom's telling us you're going to be just like your dad. No, that means we failed at this, but maybe this will succeed. It doesn't have to re-trigger and take us back to being worthless or, not smart enough or not good enough. And everybody's experienced those feelings, or when you're being bullied, oh, you're ugly or you're fat or whatever the insults may be. When we fail at something, like if we fail at like working out, like I was supposed to go to the gym this morning, I didn't. That doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to die of high cholesterol and, being unhealthy and going to gain weight. It's like, okay, that's fine. We'll try to go tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day. The sun will always rise.
Special thanks to our guest Lonnie for joining us for a two-parter at the Roundtable. Listen, like, and share this episode and others over on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.